Hi everybody, Matthew here. Today I wanted to talk about my weight loss and my weight gain stories. It's been a bit of a roller coaster on that note. I would say right now I'm at the probably the best spot I've ever been as far as my physical health along with my mental health. And I think if you can get those two things in a good place, everything else seems to be a lot easier. Everything else falls into place. You quit being quite as critical of yourself. You start being a little bit more graceful as far as looking at yourself and how you treat yourself. Um, and I'm very, very grateful for that. And I'm hopeful that I can kind of explain a little bit of my story and the roller coaster to get to where I'm at right now with the hopes that somebody else might be in a similar position and be able to take something from it. So we'll go back. We'll start when I was a kid. That's where it really does start for me. Throughout elementary school, middle school, high school, I was always a bit overweight. I struggled with my weight management, I guess I'd say. And at that time, I really never had the resources, or maybe it was the desire to make a change. I struggled with kind of being a bingy eater, and I still do to some level, but it's a little more under wraps. But yeah, so throughout all school, I was always a heavier kid that really took a toll on my confidence, my self-image, all of it. I remember wanting to buy jeans for school one year and going in and trying some on and having to buy 40s because that was the only waist size that would fit me. And I believe this was in middle school at the time. And I hated how baggy the rest of the jeans looked with the waist being a size 40. And I always struggled. So I ended up pretty well adopting athletic wear as my main outfit, my main styling. I wore gym shorts and sweats and t-shirts pretty much exclusively every day to school. That's what I would wear. Not that it's a bad thing by any means. Fit what's comfortable for yourself, but I wish I would have tried a little bit harder and had a few more resources available to me at the time to get things under control. I think it would have been a big positive as far as my view of sports, my relationships with others, my dating, all that kind of stuff as well. Because I ended up being quite a bit of a loner throughout high school. I spent most of my time in this very garage actually working on restoration projects and just tinkering, and I wouldn't trade it for much at this point looking back on it. But if I could have just had my physical health in a little bit better place, I think it would have been a net positive all in all. So yeah, throughout high school, struggled with weight management, never really had the tools to make much of a difference towards it. Maybe if I would have been a little bit more involved in football and whatnot and weight training, and it would have been easier, but I just never had the aggression, I would call it, for sports. That was something I struggled with and something I've been thinking about a lot lately. But out of high school, when I turned 19, I started going to college for welding. It was a nightly college where it'd be 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. And from 19 to 20, I lost probably right around 50 pounds. I went from 270 to 220 pounds, and that was purely diet. At that time, I hadn't been working out. I hadn't been going to the gym. I just cut my calories pretty dang low to about 1,500 calories a day. It was almost an intermittent fasting type schedule because I pretty much eat from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. and then go home and sleep in. And so I had a smaller eating window with lower calories, and it worked well for me. I didn't have a lot of demand at the time though. I would pretty much just go to school, come home, sleep, and go to school again. So it worked for me in that moment, having my calories so low, besides the rebound side of it. My calories were low, yes, the food I was eating was edible, wasn't fantastic. I still had my cravings. And when you still have those cravings and you're kind of using the diet as a bit of a band-aid, as a way to lose weight, the cravings come back hard. So I got down to around 220 pounds, closer to being 20, and I don't remember the exact reasoning, probably getting comfortable in a relationship and things along those lines, but I gained most of the weight back shortly after. Probably went up to around 260, 270 again, and probably from 20 to 24, it was just a bit of a yo-yo, whether it be keto diets, carnivore diets. I was just gaining and losing weight like crazy. Throughout that time, I did start lifting as well, which was a positive all in all. It allowed me to hold weight a little bit better, and some of the food I was eating, even when I was eating poorly, I would say, was at least going to some sort of positive change with my body. And you live and you learn. You know, it was a roller coaster. I don't recommend it to a lot of people. It's just the mental battle of it's the toughest part. Being able to lose the weight, knowing you're able to lose the weight, but then to not have the mental drive or capacity for whatever reason to be able to maintain it. It's a tough reality that I think a lot of people deal with. It's everybody knows how to do everything at this point in life, it seems. There's so many resources. There's AI, there's YouTube, there's all of it. Anybody and everybody can look up how to lose weight, follow a diet, and pretty well lose weight. You know, there's some conditions and whatnot that make it not quite as simple as that, but getting over the mental barrier and getting your mind right is such a huge part of it. And that's kind of what's helped me where I'm at right now. But when I turned 24, I decided to do a bodybuilding competition, or at least prep for one. I was going to do the Night of Champions show in Spokane, and I had prepped for about 6 months. I went from 240 pounds down to 215 pounds, having a very structured, well-balanced diet, carbs, fats, proteins, everything was in a pretty good spot. And over those 5 months or so, I was losing a few pounds a week, and that was probably the most structured I've ever lost weight up until recently. And I got down to 215 pounds, and I still had about 15 to 20 pounds to go to be overly competitive. And my mind wasn't in it. My atmosphere wasn't super great as far as the motivational factor. And I'm not a fan of excuses, because I know at the end of the day, it was me that decided not to do it. But I enjoyed the process. I was leaner than I'd ever been. I think what I struggled with a lot was the amount of strength and size that I had lost. I had always been a bigger build. And then to get down to 215, I was skinny, I felt. And I felt my muscle mass as well had to kind of suffer throughout that, which is a part of the process, which I didn't quite prepare myself for. I ended up withdrawing with around 4 weeks to go for the competition, and binged very hard after that. I was 215, I would say in about 2 weeks, I went up to about 240, just eating just about everything in sight, and looking good for a little while in between there until I was just very spilled over. And from 24 to 25, I was just on the gaining train. I became a new father, so as part of that, I was just eating for convenience, whatever was available, whatever I could get in bulk at Sam's Club that I could microwave or put in the oven, and I was just eating a lot of it. The other side of this is throughout the probably 25 to 20, throughout that age range, I'd been working in sales almost the entire time, and a lot of sitting, a lot of convenience and getting fast food and all of that. A lot of that was I'd call a negative for myself. It didn't help me with my goals, I would say. In 2025, I had started to want to make a change, just for my kids more than anything, for my son. I wanted to be a positive influence on him for when he got older. So I started dieting down again in April of 2025. I did the carnivore diet, and I usually have quite a bit of success with that, which I think most do if they can stick with it. It helped me get rid of my cravings more than anything. That's what I like about keto and carnivore. It takes away the binginess for me. And I started the carnivore diet, did it for about 5 weeks, did really well, went from 295 to 280 or so, and I decided to turn up the dial a little bit on my carnivore diet. And I tried to pull, took some inspiration from Liver King, I guess, and ended up trying some raw liver into the diet. And I think that I gave myself salmonella, because I was horrifically sick for about a week. And of course, that really didn't do me any long-term favors as far as my diet went. I ended up having almost a aversion to meat, because that's all I had been eating. So I didn't want to eat eggs, ground beef, steak, or anything like that. So probably from May to June, I was pretty lax with my eating. I didn't necessarily gain a lot of weight. I was still being pretty mindful, but I was having a hard time getting my protein in from meat. And then middle of the year in 25, I started a new job at the refinery. And at the same time as I did that, I just wanted to make the change. So I ended up doing, I would say, a low carb diet to begin with. I was probably having 50 to 60 grams of carbs a day, a little bit higher fats and high protein. So borderline keto. For the first 2 to 3 months of working at the refinery, I followed that, and it was perfect. It just worked. It just clicked. I feel a big part of that was I wasn't able to leave for food at the refinery. I would pack a lunch, and my lunchbox would have my 12 hours worth of food in it, and I would just go to work and eat, and I was staying active on the job, and a lot of those healthier habits would carry over into my day-to-day life at home. I was just in a good rhythm with it. And probably 3 months into that, I started adding in some carbs slowly but surely, just to help with my activity level. I was getting a little bit burnt out at the gym. I was getting burnt out at work. So slowly but surely started adding carbs into it, and that's kind of where I'm at now. That's where I'm at this point, is just a well-balanced diet, and I'm able to include foods that I like, whether it just be random, higher protein snacks like the protein cup of noodles, along with a lot of meal prepping. And I'd like to do another video to show some of my favorite foods that I've kind of have helped me found some success in finding an easy routine. Some of that being crunch wraps, just chicken and rice, beef and rice, yogurt with granola and berries. Just I have a few staples that I eat every single day, and I truthfully love them. I'll go out to eat every now and then, and I'll usually find myself craving my normal meal prep food, which has been really nice. But so since I started at the refinery, I was right around 270, 280 when I started, and the lowest that I've gotten was January, February this year, and I got down to about 235. And since then, I've just been letting myself grow a little bit. I've been keeping a little bit higher carbs in, and right now I'm lingering between 245 to 240, depending on the day. And I've just found a routine in it. I feel for the first time in my life, I am controlling my food, I am controlling my diet, and I'm not being controlled by food and being controlled by my diet. And that has been huge. As I mentioned a couple of times, I think a really big part of that was just finding a better rhythm with my mental health, knowing my whys, knowing what I'm doing it for. All of those things have just been a huge positive, and I'd like to make another video discussing that. So I would say on the near horizon, I'll include some of my meal prepping, some of my favorite foods that I like to eat throughout the day, and then kind of a little bit further mental health discussion, just to talk about life some. I'll probably include some photos throughout this video as far as my different highs and lows of this roller coaster of weight loss and gain. But I just wanted to share my story, and I'm far from perfect, and realistically, I'll probably gain some weight again unwillingly, and I can guarantee I will lose some weight again willingly. But I'm grateful for this journey. I really wouldn't trade much of any of it just for what I've learned along the way. It's allowed me to very much so appreciate my body, appreciate the work that I put into it, and to have a story to share. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful Easter, or have had a wonderful Easter, and I look forward to talking to you more soon. Thank you.